Shalom from Jerusalem. This is Uriel, LCP, Independent News, Jerusalem, Israel. Sir, what is your name?
Rabbi Fishman.
Rabbi Fishman. Rabbi Fishman, what do you think about the so-called peace agreements that the quartet is trying to broker with Israel and the so-called Palestinians, if there's such a people?
I don't believe that these so-called agreements will lead to peace. The opposite, they'll lead to war. The land of Israel was given to the Jewish people by God, and you can't chop it up into pieces. That makes God very angry, and that's why we have to do whatever we can to hold on to our land. This is our land, the Jewish homeland, and like you say correctly, the Palestinian people is a myth. Historically, there was never been a Palestinian people. This is something that was invented by the United Nations 40 years ago. And we have to make this point clear to the world that this is our land and we're not going to leave it or give it to an enemy.
Now, as Obama stated on one of his speeches, he said that Israel should go back to the so-called 67 border lines. You know that if we go back to the 67 borders, it'll leave Israel basically naked without any protection at all. What do you think about that so-called speech Obama made about the 67 borders?
Well, you know, Obama, he does what's best for America. And so we in Israel have to do what's best for us. And like you say, these borders are indefensible. And even if they were defensible, we still cannot give up the land of Israel. It was given to us by God. It's our duty to preserve it because it's through the Jewish people being in the land of Israel and living a Torah life in the land of Israel that the world will come to know that there's somebody more important than Obama, there's somebody more important than the European Quartet and the United Nations. Through the Jewish people being in Israel and holding on to the land of Israel, the whole world will come to know that they too have to come to serve God.
You know, I read the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, and in chapter 7 of the book of Devarim says not to make any covenant or any agreements with the enemies. Yet we see time after time after time that our government leaders are trying to negotiate with known supporters of terrorism. We have forsaken the Torah, and now we're actually paying the price of these so-called terror attacks. What would you say to our friends in the Knesset or our cabinet that we to turn back to Hashem and seek Hashem again?
Absolutely. The redemption of the Jewish people is a slowly developing historic process. Little by little, it says in the Gemara, like the dawn of day, the sun slowly rises over the horizon, and that's the case with the Jewish people, the return to the land of Israel. Little by little, we become closer and closer to Torah. More people return to the Torah, and there are more Knesset members that are religious. And with patience, you'll see that the religious community in Israel will grow. There will be more representative of the religious community in the Knesset. One day we will have a Rosh HaMemshalah, Prime Minister, who is a religious man with faith, and he will lead the country back to the Torah. And then when the Jewish people are united together with the Torah, that brings tremendous blessing upon the Jewish people and in the land of Israel. And the whole world will come to see a great light coming out of Jerusalem. And like it says in the words of the prophets, that all the nations of the world will come to Jerusalem to see how they can serve the Lord. And so anything that the world leaders can do to help the Jewish people hold on to the land of Israel and establish the Jewish sovereignty over all the land of Israel, that will be a blessing for all of the world, not just for the Jewish people.
And I like to quote what the book of Tehillim says, for the sake of Jerusalem, I will not keep silent. You know, we are not to keep silent. We are to be that voice crying out to our people to return to Hashem. Because Hashem is waiting for all of us to come to Hashem. It's simple as that, but yet you know, we read the Torah and it says that we are stiff-necked people. But yet in all that, Hashem is still waiting for all of us to return to Hashem. This is Uriel, LCP, Independent News, Jerusalem, Israel.
Okay, thank you very much.
Stay there.